opportunity to see a different side of my dad. You know, I have a very particular experience, and you know, you think you know somebody, but you really don't. You don't know everything about him, and seeing his friends and seeing different points of view and how they see him, it's incredibly valuable for us and the family. The other thing too is I feel a lot less lonely. I think we all feel a lot less lonely when I look at this and I think, oh my God, my friends, and how lucky I am, and and I think both my dad and I share this trait. Like, we're not always good at reaching out at the times we need to, and my friends do that for me, and my family does it for me, and just the support that you guys have shown us really helps ease the pain quite a bit. So I'm very grateful for you guys coming. Please be patient with me. I had to type up notes. My brain's a little discombobulated, and I just had so many ideas that I couldn't keep them. But another thing too, even despite the kids in the jacuzzi, this is kind of a special place for us because this is where my dad and I lived for the last, my dad lived here since 2001. My brother, Val, bought him this place so he could retire out here and be close to his grandchildren and be close to Val and me. And then I've lived here with my dad for the last 6 years. And, it's kind of a special. And my dad, he didn't say a lot about how he wanted, a ceremony. It was very clear he wanted to be cremated. So here he is joining us. And he's like, I don't want to do anything in a stuffy funeral home. So, and we thought, well, this is such a special place because it enabled him to be close to his family. And I think, it enabled my dad and I to be close. Plus, it's just a beautiful building. And so it's great that we could do it here. I know some of you know the story and some of you don't, so I just wanted to talk real quickly about what happened. He had been feeling, I don't know, for maybe 6 months or so, he'd been really run down, I noticed him sleeping longer, he used to go to bed, he's a crazy night owl, he'd stay up till 11:30, and unlike elderly people, he would sleep till 8 or 9, no problem. I just noticed those hours getting longer and just him not having as much energy. And I was going on a trip in May, and before I left, because I was going to be gone for a week and a half, and I just like, Dad, we got to go to the doctor and just see if there's something going on. And they said, oh, it's just an infection. We'll give him a course of antibiotics, and he should feel better. I went on my trip. I came back. He wasn't much better. So we did a second course of antibiotics. And then in June, I think it was, I remember he'd been in the hospital before, which I'll talk about later, but he had this condition. It was this autoimmune condition. I thought, oh, maybe that's what it is. So the doctor said, I doubt it, but let's send him to an immunologist to check. And I guess it was the immunologist that said, no, it's not this giant cell arteritis. That's not what it is. But let's get a CT. And unfortunately, that CT is what showed there was a big mass. And they looked at his lungs constantly. And we were all expecting cancer someday because he was a pretty heavy smoker. And he quit when he moved here in the building because then, his emphysema was bad, but there's also no smoking policy in the building. So, and he wanted to maintain the condo value. And so we discovered that, and that was at the beginning of August. And then I took him for the follow-up to see the doctor, and his health just fell off a cliff. And I told the doctor, I said, I think he needs to go in the hospital. And the doctor said, no, he feels fine. But then by the end of the exam, he was like, yeah, you go to the ER right now. And we thought, okay, we'll get him tuned up, and he'll feel better. And he did. Sure enough, he rebounded a little. We went to the oncologist. The oncologist was somewhat negative, but then we talked to the radiologist, and they ruled out chemo because he just wasn't strong enough for that. But they thought, we can knock it back. We can knock it back pretty significantly with a round of radiation. And I got to say, the radiologist was pretty was pretty. Well, he gave me a lot of hope, and you know, so we went through the studies that they do to calibrate the machine, and then we actually got to the. I mean, it was right here. It was just down the street at the Mills Health Center down there. I mean, we had it set up. It was pretty convenient, you know. I mean, I was looking at buying a wheelchair, and I could have just pushed him there, you know, because by the time I got him in the car and got the walker and the oxygen, I was just thinking, you know, it's just faster to walk. It was so close, you know. And we got 2 treatments in, and he just took another downturn, and he just never recovered. You know, we took him to a rehab facility because we thought, okay, let's see, you know, we can maybe get him to recover some strength, and we can get back on track with the radiation, but it just never did. And then he went into hospice on the, what do you think, the 16th, I guess, and then he passed on the 23rd, so a week from today, early in the morning. It was 3:03, 3:04 in the morning. You know, I don't know. I still felt like maybe there was something we could do, but doctors told me there wasn't, and it's just so hard. I didn't really get a chance to say goodbye. None of us did, because you know, the last couple of weeks were pretty tough on him, and he was. So anyway, so he passed a week ago, and but I want to not so much talk about that, but talk about the life that preceded all that. And in organizing this, I was thinking we'd organize it around his relationships, because I think that really defined him. And I wanted to talk about him as a brother, and so I've asked Jerry, his brother from Dallas, who came, and was to talk about what he was like as a brother, but to also offer Jerry's own perspective on this process. Maybe you can talk a little bit about growing up in Texas. If you'll notice in the program, there are a couple of quotes in there, and one is, "Yes, ma'am." And if any of you have talked to Jerry, you already know where that came from. When I'm around Jerry, I really understand the power of genetics, because well, it could be nurture, I guess, but it's crazy. I see the mannerisms, the yes ma'am that they both were raised to say to anybody, any woman, not someone older, any woman. That's what you say. You open the door for him, everything. And he, and you know, even one of the things that drove me crazy about my dad is we'd go out to dinner. I would eat in about 10 minutes, and I would sit there another 30 minutes waiting for him to finish, 40 minutes waiting for him to finish. He was the world's slowest eater until I went and had dinner with my uncle about 5 years ago, and I said, no, he wasn't the slowest eater. So I don't know what that is. Is that genetics? I don't know. Things like that, I don't know how that gets transferred. And then I wanted to talk about him as an educator and a professor, and I've got a couple letters from 2 of his students to read. And then I want to talk about a friend. One of his best friends is here, Birgit, and then also Nancy Lynn, who represents the Lynn family that we were so close to growing up. And then his grandchildren are going to talk about him as a grandfather, and then I'll say a few words about him as a father, and that sort of little different relationship. But so anyway, Jerry, would you